You're listening to Living Free, your podcast for a life full of freedom and magic. I'm your host, Tanja Hirsch, and I hope that every time you listen, you feel a little bit more inspired to follow your intuition and to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Welcome back to the Living Free podcast. I'm so excited to dive so naked with you today, and I will be sharing my personal story, my personal journey of how I learned to love all of me. And before I dive into this episode, I have such an amazing announcement to make that still blows my mind, because it's been a sentence in my journal a few months ago that seemed so far away, and right now it's coming my reality, and it makes me so happy and so grateful, and there's so many doors opening right now. So I will be assisting Nadine Lee. Maybe you know her. I've had her twice on the podcast, also known as Tantric.alchemy. She's guiding a Tantric Feminine Leadership Training in Costa Rica in December, and I'm so honored to assist this training. So if you feel the call to join us to meet yourself so deep like you've never did before, this is the opportunity for you to immerse in a 1 week life-changing transformational journey into your soul, into the descents of your body and your trauma, to release everything that is holding you back in your life so you can shine and embody the most empowered version of yourself. So this is something I wanted to share with you, but also in my personal life, there's so many shifts happening that really carry the fruits of the work that I did, that I shared a lot about. That wasn't easy. That was really deep healing work. But coming out on the other side, I love to share these things with you to see that it's all worth it. So if you're going through a spiritual awakening right now, if you're going through a healing path, and sometimes it's easy to question, right? Like, why am I here? Or sometimes I wish I just never started this journey. I'm feeling miserable. Like, when is this ever gonna stop? Does it ever get better again? So I'm here to tell you it will, and it's all worth it. You will see the fruits right now. You might be in the soil planting the seeds, and it's dark and messy and painful and uncertain, but there's always the opposite, the duality of life, to see the fruition of what you're planting right now. So I have been attracting so many amazing women into my life lately that I will be diving in this podcast episode as well. So to get started, I would love to share with you my journey of how I learned how to love myself. Because honestly, for a very long time, I thought to love yourself means to speak all the affirmations and to take a bubble bath and to go to massages and to get a facial treatment and to do all the things on the outside, that I completely overstepped the real work. Like, I sometimes dip my toes into this work, but it's exactly the inner deep healing work that will make you feel radiated with love from the inside, that will fill your cup and that will change your life if you dive deep into the layers, into the roots of why you're feeling this way in the first place. And I'm talking about the way how you relate to yourself, to all parts of yourself. And for a long time, I didn't even know what that means. Like, I think I love all of me, right? I'm okay. I like myself. And this year really brought me into the deepest depths of my soul and into the deepest rooted trauma of my body. Because the thing is, our mind might forget about things. And that's why many women I work with, they say, I don't have many memories of my childhood. I think it was fine. My parents were loving. They cared for me. They supported me. But when we dive deeper, and especially in these healing journeys that I'm guiding, there's so much being revealed that they weren't aware of, because their body dissociated from this moment because it was too painful to be felt in the moment. So especially if you don't have many memories from your childhood, that might be an indicator that there's a lot of parts of you that you've been disowned, that you never had the chance to release and feel the stuck emotions in your body. And that's exactly what I'm so passionate right now, because it has changed my life so much. But before I did the work, so I'm going to take you back to my journey of how I experienced my life before this work. And if you listen to this podcast, you might already be familiar with some parts of this journey, but I'm going to reintroduce myself to you if you're completely new, so you get an impression of why I am the way I am and how this work has really shifted how I experience my life and how I feel in my body right now, and the abundance that's been attracted to me. So I grew up in a family with very young parents. My mom was 18 when she got pregnant with my sister, and she was still in school. My grandparents were completely against it. They didn't even show up at the wedding of my parents, but they chose us. They said they're gonna raise us, and 2.5 years later I was born, and my sister got really sick before I was born. So I grew up adapting to the circumstances in my family. I could feel there's a lot of overwhelm, there's a lot of unspoken things, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of things going on that I just adapted to. I swallowed down my needs, I swallowed down what I'm feeling, because I had to be hyper aware of what everyone else is feeling so the whole system doesn't crumble. And then I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. When I was 1 year old, I decided, by grabbing my teddy bear and my bucket and stepping into the caravan of my grandparents, that I'm the one traveling with them now. I had always a very strong sense of what I want and how to get it, and there was no questioning needed. My grandma just said, okay, you're gonna travel with us now. And then I spent a lot of my childhood, a lot of my teenage years traveling with my grandparents around the world, mainly Europe, but also America, and we flew to places. We were always traveling. So I had a very unusual life, I would say. I would spend a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandma, she's not my biological mother, but she treated me like her daughter, and I received a lot of love from her. And then there was this other side at home where I didn't really feel welcome. I always felt like a burden. I felt like I don't belong here. I even questioned myself if I've been adopted, because I felt like so cold in this family and I didn't receive the love and support that I would have needed. And that doesn't mean that my parents are bad people. They are amazing people, and they did the best they could with what they knew, but it just wasn't what I needed, especially when it comes to emotional regulation, because they never learned how to express and feel their emotions, so they couldn't hold space for me and regulate me through my emotions. And that's what most of my women experience in their lives, that they carried this to their adulthood and they just don't know, they don't feel safe in their bodies to express these emotions, because in the past it meant they would be outcasted, they would be sent to their room. And that's when we learn how to shut these emotions down, especially the ones that are associated with bad emotions like anger and these kind of things, fear, rage, sadness. And yeah, when I grew up, it was almost like I had these two worlds of warmth and love from my grandma when I was with them, and then I came home and I felt like I had to adapt and there was no space for me, and I felt like a burden and I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel like I belonged. And what both of these upbringings taught me is, and that's a beautiful thing, that it was safe for me to be me. So I could be creative, I could be funny, I could show my sunshine side to the world. So this part of me was very loved. And that's why I adapted that this is what I'm supposed to be. This is what the world expects me to be. I have to be happy. I have to bring light to everyone. I have to take people's pain away. I'm always the sunshine kid. That's what everyone told me. I was always the silent one that just, when you bring me to a party, I would just lay down and craft with my hands something. I would paint. I would, create these beautiful art with my hands. I was always passionate about that. And I didn't ask for anything. I could survive without food, without water for a while. I didn't ask because that's what was familiar to me. And I thought that's how I have to show up and to be able to be loved in the world. And then I brought that into my adulthood, and I'm still unlearning that it is safe for me to show all of me. But I loved this side, and I always, when I was feeling great and full of light and ease and everything was flowing, I felt like, oh my God, I love myself, this is great. And then there were these moments where I felt really like depressed and sad, and I just wanted to hide, and I never knew why this was happening, but I was just hiding it from the world. I didn't show this side to anyone. I would just not speak about it, just hide underneath my blanket, distract myself with my phone or by watching movies, and just be in this pain and this misery. So I had these high highs and these low lows for my whole life. And then when I became a teenager and, men and women are getting attracted to each other, I lost another part of myself that before I felt safe in my family. I felt safe to express my sensuality, my aliveness, my creativity. I had always so much of this energy. We all do until we unlearn that. And then I discovered like that it is not safe for me to show the side. It's like I ran into a wall, and women in my little town that I grew up, they would talk bad behind my back. Even if I would dress feminine, they would say like, she's a slut, she's sleeping with all the women. And I was in touch with some male friends, and they would tell me that, the women they are talking in the cafe in this town, they would talk bad behind my back, and that I'm a whore. And I was like feeling so betrayed and so misunderstood, because I did not sleep with any of those men. I was always very careful with my sexual energy, and I was open, but I never slept with men because it didn't feel safe for me. I needed a lot of trust and a lot of same wavelength, and there's a lot of factors that make me feel open for a man sexually. So I didn't sleep with any of those men, but I got slut shamed for doing so, because they were projecting a lot of fear and jealousy and greed on me that I couldn't see back then. I thought, oh my God, something is wrong with me. I have to dress in a different way. I have to show up in a different way, because otherwise I'm outcasted. And that's the biggest existential fear for us, if we feel outcasted of the group, because back in the days, that would have meant that we literally die, right? If we don't belong to a group, we couldn't have survived in the wild with all the wild animals and without fire and a home. We needed community to survive. So because this is so imprinted in our DNA, the feeling of not belonging is terrifying for our whole being. It brings up a lot of existential fear of dying, literally. So what I did is I adjusted, and I was hiding my sensuality. I made sure to not talk to a man if there's a woman looking at me, because I was afraid he would judge me or think I would take this man away, even though I never had bad intentions. And so I adapted over and over again. I took on these layers of conditioning that were not truly me, but I learned because it felt safe in my body. I learned to take on these layers and these versions of myself to be able to belong to something. My whole life I tried to belong to groups of people, to friends, and there were only little people that I could show my actual self with. And the metaphor that I love to use in my work, and you've probably heard it before, is the unicorn between horses. So my whole life I tried to hide my uniqueness. I tried to hide who I truly was, because I felt it's not safe for me to show this. I was hiding my sensuality, I was hiding my darkness, my pain, my anger. Everything was shut away, so I at least can survive by belonging somewhere. And what that created a really toxic relating to people. I established a huge amount of people pleasing, of overgiving. I always thought I had to give so much. I can never make anyone feel bad, because otherwise I'm outcasted again and I'm alone. I always have to adapt. So I felt like I was wearing a horse mask above my unicorn face, trying to fit in, feeling horrible because I felt like I don't belong. I tried to have small talk with people. That was something that never felt aligned. I always wanted this deep connection with people, because that was what I was lacking in my family. Nobody spoke about anything. So this was something I knew I was craving. I was craving and longing for deep connection, for someone to value me just the way I am and not just a version of me. And then when I got older, I just became this version. So with some people, I felt safe to put off the mask and show the unicorn. And with most people, I just put this mask on, and I was wondering why I don't feel like I belong, but I also didn't attract anyone that was in alignment with who I truly was, until I realized if I don't show all of me, if I don't embrace my uniqueness and the parts of me that I thought were unlovable, then the world cannot meet me. I cannot magnetize the people that are like me on the same frequency if I constantly wear this horse mask, trying to fit into a horse tribe and not realizing that actually my unicorn is something really beautiful and powerful. I tried to hide my sensitivity even, because it was too much, and people told me it's too much, you can't, don't be so sensitive. So I thought it's a bad thing, and it got me burned out in my job, and even in my job as a teacher, I felt like I don't belong. I don't resonate with these colleagues, and it took me on this path, and it was a really painful one for me. I share a lot about this, that my relationships were really unfulfilling, unnourishing for me. Not all of them. There were always people in my life that I resonated a lot and that I had a lot of fun with, especially my best friends. That normally were really, really nourishing and happy and beautiful, and they could show all of me. But many relationships were really one-sided, and they started to crumble when I learned how to love myself so deeply that I realized I don't have to overgive. I don't have to people please. I don't have to wear this mask of a horse. Why would I do that? It didn't make sense anymore. I would put this mask aside, and even though it meant I had to walk for a while on my own, I finally attracted the unicorns all around me. They could see me because I didn't wear this mask anymore. They were like, oh, there's a unicorn. You're one of me. And of course they met me because I was showing and embracing that of me. But if you have a part of yourself that you secretly long to express, and that's oftentimes the things that trigger you in other women or other people, that's something that's longing to be expressed because it's part of who you are, but it's in your shadow. You've abandoned that part because it didn't feel safe in the past. So you learn to adapt. You learn to just show some parts of you. You are hiding your emotions, your vulnerability. And then, of course, you can't have intimate relationships because you're not even intimate with yourself. You're abandoning the little girl inside of you that just wants to be seen. You're abandoning your emotions. You're abandoning all these versions of yourself that are craving and longing to be expressed to the world, because this is where your magic lies. This is where your beauty lies. This is when you start to radiate, because if you run around just trying to fit in and trying to fill this hole inside your soul that is longing to be loved, you can try this, and many people try this until they die, but this hole inside of you can never be filled from the outside, from not a single person in this world. It has to be started to be filled by your own love. And this is exactly the work that we will be doing during Dripping in Self-Love, the 3-day home retreat. We will dive into these layers underneath before you took on these conditioning layers, these masks, all the versions of you. We will dive into your inner world so you can clean up there and you can release some layers and you can meet yourself so deep to realize, wow, actually, I don't have to hide these parts any longer. I don't have to pretend I'm someone I'm not. And for me, when I really started embodying that and to embrace my uniqueness and to feel my worth that needed to crumble by a narcissistic relationship, by emotional abuse, that's when my real self-love started. I found myself after this relationship shattered into a million pieces, and that's when I drew the line. I said, this is the lowest I will ever get. No matter what it takes, I will dig so deep into my soul to create a new version of me. I will use gold to fill these pieces, to stick them together to something more stable, more worthy, more beautiful from the inside out, no matter what it takes. And then, of course, if we start to shift on the inside, the outside world starts to crumble, and everything that's not in alignment with your soul will fall away. And that can be very painful. In my case, it was very deep and very painful that my grandma, for example, that I almost saw like a second mom, that raised me with so much love, I thought, that I realized there was a lot of conditional love in there. There was a lot of love that didn't come from unconditional giving, but it came from, I want you to be like that. I want you to fit into this box. And if you don't fit into this box anymore, then I don't love you anymore. And when I quit my job, it started crumbling because that was the last box I was checking. They had a picture of me in their mind of how I should live my life, how I'm supposed to become. They brainwashed me a lot, to be honest, when I look back. But I couldn't see it for a very long time. And then when I was waking up finally and releasing these layers that were not me, they almost dropped me. Like, that was really painful. Even when I said I'm gonna move here, and when I went through this whole burnout situation a few years ago, they would not support me and not see the real me. They would just be concerned about their box that they put me in. They would ask, like, when do you go back to being a school teacher? Even though they knew I cannot even be on a street right now because my nervous system was so overstimulated. And this was a really hard part, to see how much of the love I thought I received as a child was actually based on conditions. And as soon as I really embraced who I truly was and not tried to please them anymore and not tried to make them proud and not looking for their validation, that I needed to let go of that cord. That doesn't mean that they're not in my life anymore. I love them a lot and I'm very grateful for what they gave me. But it just, it's a different relationship right now. And it's the same with so many friends. I lost so many friends in my life that were based on the pain that I was experiencing and the patterns that I established because of what I experienced as a child, a little girl that felt so unlovable and so almost like she doesn't belong here. And I shared a very vulnerable post on Instagram. If you want to read that, I share a somatic healing journey where I met this inner baby girl, a few months old, and how she felt and how unbearable it was. And only by giving her love and meeting all these past versions of me that were craving for love, and I was shutting the door instead of looking at it, that's true self-love. For me, that's when your life begins to shift. Your life will not shift if you book 2 massages a day. That can create like a something small, but if you want to see real changes in the way you relate to the world, then you have to dive deep and to embrace who you are, even with these parts that feel unlovable, because they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be felt, they want to be nurtured by you. And no one else can give you that. You can run around your whole life looking for that love from someone else, but you will always find yourself feeling the pain over and over again. And sometimes it works for a really long time. But in the long run, what really makes you feel good in your body and what makes you feel abundant and loved and radiating is when you fill that hole inside of you with your own love. And that only works if you meet yourself deeper and if you release these stuck emotions out of your body. And that's what I'm so passionate about right now, because I can see how it really impacts my life. Like these last few weeks feel like a miracle. There's been so many doors opening. There's been so many magical connections. Sisters that I met for the first time, that I connected so deeply that we went naked into the rays and sharks to dive and to shoot naked ray shootings. And a few years ago I wouldn't have even allowed myself to dream about that. I wouldn't have thought people like this exist in this world, because what I was surrounded by was people that followed the rules, that were also stuck in their boxes that I felt stuck in. But my soul knew there's more to this life. There's another way of experience love and connection and the beauty and the aliveness. I didn't want to feel drained all the time, not by my job, not by my relationships. I was really dying inside to feel alive and to feel valued for who I truly was. And I feel right now I'm really attracting these souls because they can see my uniqueness, they can see my love. I'm not hiding it anymore because I'm afraid of being hurt. I'm showing who I am and people can meet me there. And if they don't like what they see, I'm triggering a lot of people. I know that and I can feel it, and I get a lot of hate as well. But I don't allow my light to be dimmed because of that. And I love myself so deeply. I can truly say that. I can look into the mirror and say that to myself. I can smile when I look at myself because I'm so proud of who I have become, of all the things I've been running away from my whole life. I finally faced it and I felt that pain and I released it. And the transformation that I'm seeing in my containers blows my mind. It really does. And that's why I'm so passionate, because your life can shift so quickly if you stop running, if you stop distracting, if you stop lying to yourself, if you're finally completely radical honest with yourself, if you meet yourself deeper, if you surrender into the discomfort, if you open the door to the versions and parts of yourself that feel unloved, that feel unworthy. Only when you embrace them, that's when your life will shift. Only that is when you don't look for love and validation outside of you. And I wish this for every single person on the planet, because imagine how the world would look like if everyone would live like this. So if you feel ready to dive deep, I invite you with open arms to Dripping in Self-Love. My 3-day home retreat. We start the 4th of November until the 6th. We will meet 5 times live. There's also going to be 3 pre-recorded sessions. You will have 3 months access to everything. So you can really do these sessions over and over again whenever you feel, you want to meet yourself again there. And another thing that what makes this container so special is you will meet people on the same journey. Especially if you just started this journey, it can be very lonely and people don't get it. If people are not on this path, they will think you're an alien and they don't understand what you're talking about. And so you will start to hide these conversations. And in these containers that I create, they are so open and you connect to people that are on the same journey. And that's freaking gold to expand, because it's the effect of osmosis. You become what you surround yourself with. And to have a space where you can show all of you not only to yourself, but to be seen in that with other women, that is priceless. And we will also, work a lot with your sensuality. It's a 3-day program that will guide you deep into your soul and into your body. So we will connect spirituality, healing, embodiment, and sexuality. So you can meet yourself and learn how to love yourself fully. Not the covered up bubble bath version, but to embrace all of who you are, because this is where your power lies. If you're not afraid of these parts, if you're not afraid if someone sees them, then they would think you are unlovable. So you hide them. If you allow yourself to meet yourself there and to nourish yourself, to embrace yourself there, that's when you can show up completely different as an empowered version of you. Because, even if they see it, they can look at that. I'm not afraid of it anymore, because my worth doesn't depend on how they perceive me, what they think. And it's so easy to do this with a plant, or with something we love. For example, I'm so in love with my dresses. I love my dresses. They make me feel feminine and sexy and sensual, and I just adore them. And if someone would say this dress is ugly, I wouldn't care, because I still think it's beautiful. Maybe you can relate to that with a plant or something you love in your flat or at home. It's easy to stand behind that because you just love it, right? But if someone is criticizing us and we're not deeply rooted in who we are, then we tend to these tendencies of people pleasing and adapting and not showing up as we truly want and hiding ourselves, closing our heart, not speaking our truth. There's such a big ripple effect of this work that I'm still mind blown about. And I'm still feeling into the fruits that this deep work that I've done most of 2022 is showing up now. So you find the link in the show notes. I would love to have you. You might leave as a different woman. This work can really change your life so quickly. So I would love to have you there. And other than that, I hope to see you next week.